Yo, what up? How's it going? And welcome back for another video. In today's video, we'll be going through all the traits and origins for TFT Set 7. And what we'll be doing with that is I'll be showing you guys what the traits actually do, what are all the units in those traits, and then how those traits pair with other traits. So what are some synergistic things you guys can look for so you guys can build better compositions and be prepared going into the new set. Now, why should you listen to me? If you're new here, I've been Challenger since set 4, and I played about 100 plus games at a PvE server to get ready to make this video. So with that out of the way, let's get right into it. All right, before we start and go through each of these, I just want to say we will not be like building compositions here. We're rather going to be talking about what are good pairings. You know, like what do assassins pair with? Do they pair with Cavaliers? Do they pair with bodyguards? You know, or not bodyguards, but you get the idea. I will not be building compositions. I think it's entirely dependent on meta, your augments, your items, all that good stuff. And yeah, so that's just not what we're talking about. If that's what you came here to see, we are just going to be going through each of the traits and talking about how to best utilize them. So let's start with assassins. So assassins, we got Kanye, Kiana, Diana, Talon, and Pike. So the roles that each of these fulfill is Kayn is a DPS, Kiana is more of a utility style unit, but I could see her being a DPS. Diana is a DPS, Talon is a DPS, and Pike is a DPS. Pretty common for assassins, right? Assassins are pretty simple. And so what are some good pairings with this? As you can see, Pike is a Whisper, and Diana is a Scale Scorn. Braum is a Scale Scorn and a Guardian, and Thresh is a Guardian and a Whisper. So that is a common pairing that you can play for a frontline. We also have Talon, Kiana. We also have Kiana and Kayn. Kayn is a Ragewing. You could pair a Shin, which is a Bruiser, and a Ragewing. Kiana is a Tempest. You can pair Ornn with that. You can have Bruisers, so you can run Bruisers right there. And then you can play a Hecarim to get Ragewing as well. And you would have Ragewing who is Ragewing who is Hecarim, who is a Cavalier. And we'll go through Cavaliers in a minute, and you'll see this will make more sense once you get through all the traits. But Hecarim can pair very well with another Scale Scorn, which is Lilia, who is a Cavalier. So point is, there's a lot of frontline options. Talon also is a guild, and he has Sejuani, who's a Cavalier. So the most common frontlines you'll end up running with these compositions are going to probably be around Cavaliers, Guardians, or if you want to play around Shimmer Scale and you get an Idis, you can play around an Idis, which is a Dragon. Assassins are pretty simple. And on to another extremely simple one here is Astrals. Astral, I didn't even say what Assassins do because I think it's pretty... they've been in every single set. Assassins, you gain critical strike, chance, and damage. So all their abilities can crit without having a jeweled gauntlet or anything like that. They can automatically crit. You want to build more crit to scale their damage. Assassins are extremely simple. All right, Astral. Quickly, we'll talk about what Astrals do. Astrals is kind of like an economy trait, but it is very different than Yordles and Mercs of the past. Astral, you really actually have to commit to this comp to get the value of the econ. So it's not something like Yordles where you just run it every single game if you get it offered. If you're running Astrals and you end up trying to play into Astrals, then you actually want to commit to them most of the time. Or if you just run it for the early game, it's what you hit, that's fine. But it doesn't function like a standard economy trait. The way that it works is the more Astrals you have, the more AP all of your Astrals will have. When you have 3 at the current, right now it's like you get 5 AP, and then you have 6, you get like 30 AP, and then if you have 9, you get like 50 AP or 60 AP. I mean, that'll change over time. But the point is, the more you have, the more AP you get. And the way that this works is every 5th shop of Astrals is you'll get an orb that usually has about like 2 gold in it. If you have 3 Astrals, give you about like 2 gold, something like that. And so every 5 shops, you'll get a little bit of econ, and then that 5th shop as well will have a higher chance of you being able to hit your Astrals. So it is a reroll composition, very similar to Yordles, but it doesn't just give you free economy. You actually kind of have to commit to the composition. So let's go through each of the units. It is Nidalee, Skarner, Vladimir, Nami, Illaoi, Varus, and Aurelion Sol. Nidalee is more of a DPS. She's a Shapeshifter. Skarner is a tank for obvious reasons. He's a Bruiser. Vladimir is a mixture of tank and DPS. Nami is a support and can like contribute decently to your damage. I could see a patch where she's good at a good damage dealer, but she's more of a supportive style unit. Illaoi is a tank and kind of a supportive style unit, as she does have Shred built into her kit. And if you guys want to know more about what each of these units do, I do have a unit guide where I dive deep on each unit. but that's why I'm not talking about them too much. Varus is a mixture of DPS and utility as well. Very awesome unit. Aurelion Sol is also a mixture of DPS and utility. He has a lot going on in his kit. So typically when you play this composition, you play as a vertical. If you don't know what vertical means, it means you just play the same trait and you keep stacking the same trait. So you go from 3 to 6 to 9. You don't have to go to 9, but yeah. But if you play Astrals, you'll almost always play 6 most of the time. It's just the way it works out. It's kind of like Yordles. You want to play 6 to maximize your value. Anyways, it's just a reroll composition. You reroll at 4, reroll at 5. Some things that it pairs well with. Common carries of this comp are going to be Vladimir or Varus or Nidalee. So if you end up wanting to carry Nidalee, if that's going to be something that is strong, then you obviously just want to get Shapeshifter value. So play something like a Gnar, play something like a Swain to get Shapeshifter value if it's a patch where that is good. Vladimir is a mage. Vladimir is a mage, and if you want to carry him, he can't. I'm sure there'll be patches where he can carry, so you want to pair him with more mages like Rise and Silas are going to be very good for you. Rise is good because he's good to plug and play because he is a guild, gets value to your team. And Silas is good because he's a bruiser, and you already have 2 bruisers, so it kind of opens you up to get a 4th bruiser, play something like Ornn. Or if you just get a bruiser heart, very easy to get 4 bruiser in. You can get that bruiser frontline, and you're good to go. Varus is a Swiftshot. Usually we want to pair him with something like Twitch, because Twitch is a Swiftshot and a guild unit, so that's very good for you, obviously. And if you end up running Twitch, who's a guild unit, and then you also run Rise, which is also a guild unit, you can get that extra stacking of guilds. So yeah, pair them with bruisers, mages, and guild units are usually going to be your best bet. And if you end up just playing 9, you just play Aurelion Sol. You don't really have any room for other units. Bard, I'm not going to talk about Bard. That we talk about him in his own in the unit guide, because Bard is his own unique trait. All right, let's go through Bruiser. Bruisers is what it's always been. It's the brawler trait. Bruisers, if you've played any set of TFT, you've played some variation of this. It is the health stacking trait. The way Bruisers work is your whole team gains a little bit of HP, and then that little bit of HP that your team gets for every bruiser that you have, it'll be doubled on your bruisers. So your bruisers will be a little bit more tanky. Here we got Scorner, Tahm Kench, Shin, Illaoi, Olaf, Silas, Ornn, and Syphen. So let's go through here. Scorner, we already talked about Scorner. He's a tank. Tahm Kench, tank. Shin, tank. Illaoi, tank, and somewhat of utility. I could see a patch where she's like really overloaded and deals a lot of damage. But yeah, mostly a tank. Olaf, DPS. Silas is a just primarily like utility and very tanky. He gains a shield and he does a mana reave, so I could see a patch where he may be as strong as a carry, but they really are trying to balance him more around utility and tankiness. Ornn is kind of like a god tank, very good utility, very good CC. Syphen is a mixture of tank, utility, and DPS. A lot of people itemize her as a DPS, but she also has some CC in her kit, and some like innate tankiness by just being a bruiser, being a very strong unit. Cool. So that is our stuff. So as you can see, it's very easy to pair Whispers here. So if you're ending up wanting to play a Syphen focused comp, you can play around Whispers and Silas and Syphen, and you can play more around Shapeshifters as well, because Elise is also a Whisper, and usually when you play around Whispers, you want to duo carry Syphen and Elise. It gives you a nice diversification of your damage. Can be very cool. You can play Bruisers around whenever you play Warriors, but because you can get Shin, Olaf, that's pretty decent. There's a bunch of other warrior variations, which we'll go into Warriors later. I love playing Warriors, so you can play Bruisers with Warriors, can be very decent. Coolio, and then obviously Astrals, like we just talked about. Those are gonna be your most common pairings. You can also play Cannoneers with Bruisers if you want to try to play around Revel, because there are 2 Cannoneers that are Revels. That can be decent. And then I just talked about it a second ago, Bruisers can be the front line for mages as well, but mages also use Cavalier front line. So a lot of flexible options here. And you know, Ornn is just a god, so play around Ornn. He's very good. All right, cool. Let's go into Cannoneer. We got Senna, Jinx, Tristana, Corki. Senna is a mixture of DPS and utility. Jinx is a mixture of DPS and utility, primarily utility though. Tristana is a DPS and Corki is a DPS. So as we look over here, Senna, I'm sure there'll be a patch where like rerolling Senna and Set is going to be good. So just obviously pairing your team, your Cannoneers with Ragewings is going to be pretty good, like Ragewing and Dragonmancer, because if you're going to be playing a Senna focused build, you're also going to be playing a Set focused build, which Set is a Dragonmancer, so you can pair that around like that. As I just said just a second ago, Jinx is a Revel. Corki is a Revel. So it's very easy to pair them with Bruisers, because Tahm Kench is also a Revel. Now, the really important unit for this is Tristana, because Tristana is a Trainer and Cannoneer. Trainer is one of my favorite like favorite comps to play. I love playing around trainers, and I think everybody should learn how to play around trainers because it is for sure going to have some patches where it is very, very, very strong. It always does. Every set that has a thing like that, like A-bomb, mech, that sort of thing, it's always going to have a place in the meta at some point. So I would recommend learning how to play around trainers. So Cannoneers pair extremely well with trainers for obvious reasons, like I just said. So the other trainers are Heimerdinger and Lulu. Heimerdinger is not too important for what I'm talking about here, but Lulu is an Evoker and a Mystic. Evoker is the most important thing because Corki and Jinx are Revels. So if you want to play them with your Tristana, if you're going to carry your Tristana, or you're carrying your Corki or your Jinx or whatever with trainers, the cool thing about this is that Lulu is an Evoker, and then another Revel is Sona. Sona is also an Evoker and a Revel. So the trainer compositions are really, really, really cool. So yeah, you want to pair these usually with trainers, bruisers, and you're good to go. Yeah, all the good stuff. All right, Cavaliers. Cavaliers are one of my favorite traits. I love playing Cavaliers. I'm so happy they're back. I just think they're so fun watching them zip around. We got Sejuani, Lilia, Nunu, and Hecarim. Did I even talk about what this trait does? Oh, Cannoneer. I didn't even say what Cannoneer does. So every 5th auto attack, might be a different number. They change it all the time. I believe it's every 5th auto attack. Their auto attack explodes and it deals AoE damage over time in a small area of effect. Yeah, and it scales off of attack damage no matter what. Cool. Cavalier. The way Cavalier functions is, and we just said the units, the way Cavaliers function is they dash at the beginning of combat, and if they ever get a takedown or they're not in attack range, they will dash to their target. So they'll never not be in attack range because they're just dashing all across the map. They're very fun to play around. And whenever they dash, they gain flat resist, so they'll gain armor and magic resist, and that just scales up. And the more Cavaliers you have, the more they will get, and you're good to go. So we got Sejuani, Lilia, Nunu, and Hecarim. Sejuani is a tank and like has a little bit of utility. She has kind of like a CC, but it's really small. Lilia is a DPS. Nunu is also kind of a DPS, but he has a little bit of utility because he can, like, if he deals a lot of damage, he can eat people, you know? So I've had my Nunu just like eat a 2-star Yasuo at the beginning of a fight. Amazing. Hecarim is a tank and a utility unit. He has a big CC ability in his kit. All right, so I talked about this a little bit earlier, but Lilia is a unit I love to play around. So Lilia is a Mage, Cavalier, and a Scale Scorn. So she pairs super, super well with mages and does really well in the trainer composition. Every time I play Lilia, I really like playing her in trainers because when you play trainers, you get Nomzi, and Nomzi is not like, he's not tanky enough to solo tank. So usually you want to pair something like Lilia, and Lilia is more of a DPS, but then you get a Lilia and then you get a Hecarim in your comp, and that's like a real tank, and you can get like a real front line for your trainer composition. So I really like pairing Lilia and Cavaliers with trainers. They're also very good with warriors because Lilia is a Scale Scorn, Olaf is a Scale Scorn, Nunu is a Mirage, and Yone is a Mirage. So if you're rerolling something like that, they can be very good. Obviously, if you want to play Hecarim, you can pair Hecarim with a Cavalier to make it more tanky, maybe something like a Nunu, or maybe Lilia. It doesn't really matter. You can pair those, and you can, when you're running like a Ragewing composition, can be very good. And Sejuani can fit really easily into comps because she is a guild unit. Guild is the easiest splashable trait in the game. So yeah, cool, yo. There we go, Cavaliers. Oh, we're already on Dragon. Okay, a Dragon, because it's in alphabetical order. So here are all the dragons. It's Deja, Idis, Shioyu, Siphon, Aoshin, Aurelian Soul, and Shyvana. So what do dragons do? Dragons are like the Colossus traits. It's a mixture of Colossus and Chosen if you guys played set 4 and set 6. So they will take up 2 unit slots from your team. So if you're level 8, you can only have 7 units or 7 total units on your board if you want to play a dragon, because they do take up those 2 slots. And they also count for 3 towards one of their traits. So I won't go through each of them, but because I may not remember them off memory right here. But Deja, he counts as 3 Mirage. Idis counts as 3 Shimmer Scale. Shioyu counts as 3 Jade. Siphon counts as Whispers. Oh, they put them all at the top. That's very helpful. Aoshin is 3 Tempest. Aurelian Soul is 3 Astral, and Shyvana is 3 Ragewing. Well, that was very helpful. I didn't have to think about that at all. Anyways, what the dragons get is they get a big health bonus. So they get a flat HP bonus to him. So they naturally are very tanky on their own. Even the DPS base dragons are pretty tanky, and they give you those 3 things. Very, very, very strong. if you're going to play a dragon, you essentially just base your entire composition around the dragon. Doesn't mean you have to do vertical, but if you're going to play a dragon, you pretty much just base the whole thing around them, with a few exceptions. Like you could just play Idis, just because Idis is extremely tanky, and you just get the 3 shimmer skill, and then you just play whatever around it. Doesn't really matter. But really, you just play around the traits that your dragons do. So like Deja is a Mirage, so you'll play around Mirage units. So other Mirage units would be like Nunu, which is a Cavalier, Leona, which is a Guardian. So those are going to be most common front lines for you. Idis is a frontliner. Deja is a DPS, by the way. Shioyu is a Jade and a Mystic, and so you can play some Mystics and Jades. You know, it's pretty self-explanatory there. Dragons are pretty simple to play around. Siphon is Whispers, Bruisers. We already talked about Siphon earlier. Aoshin is a Tempest. So it's really good to play with Bruisers when you play Aoshin, because you can play... what's his face? You can play Ornn, who is a god, a literal god, actually. So very good with Bruisers if you want to do that. But really, just Aoshin needs a lot of frontline, a lot of CC, because he needs time bot for him. Aurelion Sol, you're usually going to play him when you're playing, you know, unless you're abusing Mage Spat. You usually just play him in vertical Astrals, or you'll play him with Mages. He needs a lot of frontline to succeed. So you just mainly just play him with his traits, or you just need really, really big frontline or a Mage Spat. And then Shyvana, you play around Ragewings, obviously. She's Ragewing and Shapeshifter, and there's another Ragewing Shapeshifter, which is Swain. So it's really easy to play around Shyvana. What are the roles they fulfill? DPS, tank, mixture of tank and DPS, mixture of tank, DPS, utility. Aoshin is just a DPS, pretty much. That's all he does. Aurelion Sol, mixture of DPS and utility, and Shyvana, mixture of DPS, utility, and tank. She's pretty much a god. Very good. Cool. Dragon. Must be on Dragonmancer now then. All right, Dragonmancer. Dragonmancer is a very, very, very cool trait. It's a 3, 6, and 9 trait. And what you get from Dragonmancer is once you have Dragonmancer active, you can select one of your guys to be a hero. You get a little item that's on your bench, and you just put it onto your character, and it bounces off of them, but the effect will go onto them. It's very obvious which one is the hero. They'll get really big, they get really huge, and they gain health and ability power. That's what they gain, and it just scales up the more Dragonmancers you have, and the higher star level your Dragonmancers are. And so here we are. We got Karma, Set, Ashe, Lee Sin, Swain, Volibear, and Yasuo. So Karma is just a DPS. That's all she does. She's usually, you'll just play her as a synergy bot unless you want to like re-roll her as a carry. Set is a mixture of tank and DPS, and Ashe is a mixture of DPS and utility. Lee Sin is a mixture of all three. He's kind of like, he deals a lot of damage, but he's also a tank, and he has good CC. Swain is purely a DPS. That's all he does. Volibear is purely a DPS. That's pretty much all he does. And then Yasuo is kind of a god. He's a mixture of all three. You can build him tank if you'd like. He does have a lot of innate tankiness. He has good utility, he has a lot of CC, and he has a lot of damage. So pretty much a god unit here. So whenever you're playing Dragonmancers, they pair really well. Like if you're playing early game, you want to just play around 3. They pair really well around Jade, because we do have 2 Jades right here, very easy to hit. And then you can just play a Gnar for your other Jade, and then you get Swain, who's a Ragewing and Shapeshifter, and then you can just play another Ragewing. Then you got Ragewing, Jade, Shapeshifter, and you're good to go. So those are some really easy things to play around. You can also, if you play around like Lee Sin, something like that, he is a Tempest. And if you're playing around Set and Swain, that is a Tempest, 2 Ragewing, and then you can play Kiana, who is a Tempest and an Assassin, and guess what? You got Kanye, who is a Ragewing, so you can get Ragewing active very easily. You can get Tempest active very easily, so those are really common things to pair with it. And then if you want to actually vertical it up, I mean, you just play 6 of them. You don't really have to think about it too much. It's really not much to think about. You just play 6, and you're good to go. Yeah. That's pretty much it. If you want to carry Volibear and you want to play like Legends or something like that, you can totally do that. You can play around Shimmer Scale as well, because Kanye is a Shimmer Scale. And again, like I just said, Ragewing, Kanye is a Ragewing and a Shimmer Scale. Volibear is a Shimmer Scale. So you can obviously play around that if you'd like, if you get an emblem. I even played a game the other day. I played vertical Shimmer Scale. I had 7 Shimmer Scale. I played around Dragonmancer because I was able to play the Shimmer Scale here, and I was playing Yasuo at the end of the game. I was carrying Yasuo and Pyke, and so I was able to get Dragonmancer. I was able to get Dragonmancer and Shimmer Scale active and play it on my Yasuo. It was very fun. But that's pretty much how you play that. Alrighty. Dragonmancer should be on Evoker now. Okay, Evokers, what they do is they gain mana for themselves per auto attack. You need to have the trait active. Obviously, it's a 2 and 4 trait. Yeah, so they just gain mana. It's not like Invoker. If you guys played set 5, your whole team doesn't gain mana. It is only the Evokers themselves. All right, we have Anivia, Lulu, Sona, and Aurelian Soul. Anivia is primarily a DPS, but she does have some utility, as she does have an attack speed slow, and it is an area of effect. We got Lulu over here, who is a Mystic, Trainer, and Evoker. We have Sona, who's a Revel and Evoker. Lulu is purely a supportive unit. Sona is like a mixture of DPS and utility, but is most commonly going to just be used for her CC. But I could totally see patches where she can carry, and we already talked, you know, ad nauseum about Aurelian Soul. So cool. What are some common things that will pair super well with Evokers? So I already talked about they pair extremely well with trainers, because we have Lulu, who's a trainer, and then we can fit Sona, who is a Revel and Evoker, and Tristana is a Cannoneer, and Jinx is a Cannoneer, and Corki is a Cannoneer, and they're all Revels. So that's very cool, right? So that's a very common pairing. You can also pair them with Bruisers, because we have Anivia, who is a legend. If you want to play around legends, then we have a Bruiser, who is also a legend, which is Ornn. So you can play around with Ornn, and you can play around with Sona, because she is a Revel, and Tahm Kench is also a Revel, obviously. Other than that, you can pair them with Astrals, because there is a Mystic. Nami is a Mystic, and Aurelian Soul is an Astral and an Evoker, so you can play Lulu with that, so if you're playing Astrals. But anyways, these are just solid utility units. I like to try to fit Lulu and Sona in most of my compositions, just to give me that extra utility. It's very nice. All right, let's talk about Guardian. So Guardian, we have, what does Guardian do? So after Guardians go underneath a certain health threshold, I think it's 50% health, but it'll change over time. After they go under a certain health threshold, they will put a shield on their lowest health ally. It's very, very, very good. I really like it. And they might, I think they shield themselves and an ally. I think that's what it does, whatever. Point is, they make shields. They're very tanky. They're just like they're kind of very similar to Brawlers. They're just really beefy. That's really what they do. All right, we got Leona, Taric, Braum, Thresh, and Idis. So Leona is a tank, Taric is a tank, Braum is a tank, Thresh is a utility style unit, and occasionally you can like put carry items on them, but that's a little hyphy. And then Idis, pure tank. So Guardians pair very well with units that need a lot of stall. So like it can pair super well with like an Alshin, even though you don't have any innate synergies. Can pair well with an Aurelian Soul, even though no innate synergies. It's very, very, very stally. But what you'll notice is it does lack a lot of CC. So if you want to play a lot of these units, you'll usually need to pair them with backline CC units. A lot of times we talked about earlier, Guardians can pair well with Warriors, because they are Whispers and Scale Scorn. We already talked about that. They can also pair very well with Shapeshifters, because we do have the Whisper there, which would also be like building kind of like a Whisper comp with Shapeshifters, like we talked about earlier. Cool. Also does very well if you want to play like a Mirage vertical. Leona is very good. Leona is just pretty much a god tank in the Euro game, but essentially like Guardians, a lot of times it feels like it's a front line that you play for early and mid game, because like I just said, they hardly have any CC involved. So usually you want to pivot out, but if it makes a lot of sense to keep running them in the late game, because it just makes a lot of sense for your augments, the rest of your team, just know that you'll need to find CC somewhere else if you want to keep playing them. And Idis is a very cool unit, because you can just play Idis solo tank. Very cool. Guardians are really simple. There's not really much to talk about here, honestly. Guild. Guild is a really, really, really cool trait. So the way guild works, each of the guild units, and I'm going to try to just remember them off the top of my head what each of them does, but each of the guild units has their own effect that they give to your entire team. So just by playing one guild unit, it is active, and it just scales up like that, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So just for every guild unit you have, you'll get this benefit that's unique for each of the units that you add to your board. And the more guild units you have, the more that trait the more that trait does itself. So for example, Twitch gives attack speed. So he gives 10% attack speed at the time of making this video. And if you're playing Twitch and Sejuani gives 100 health at the time of making this video. I'm going to stop saying that now. You get it. Sejuani gives 100 health. Twitch gives 10 attack speed. If you just play Twitch by himself, your team will get 10 attack speed. But if you play them together, your team will get 12% attack speed, and they'll get 120 health, because it's just it increases at a 20% increment at the time we make this video. So you get the idea. The more you play, the more you get. So this is health. Twitch is attack speed. Rise is AP. Talon is AD. And Bard is mana on hit. So your whole team will get a little bit of mana on hit. Bard is a god. Anyways, all right. So we already talked about a lot of this stuff. So once we get deep into this stuff, we pretty much talked about a lot of it. So obviously Guild will pair pretty well with Cavaliers because Sejuani's a Cavalier. So if you want to play Cavaliers and you want to play Twitch as like a DPS, something like that, that can be very common pairing. Obviously you can just run that easy frontline Cavaliers, boom, bam, boom. Your Bob's your uncle, you're good to go. Twitch pairs very well with Astrals, like we already talked about earlier. Twitch is like a really good, I got to go through the units. Tank, DPS / utility, DPS, utility. Boom. There we go. Twitch, like, he's very good at splashing into a lot of comps. So any comp where you're running a Swiftshot, running to Twitch is just so good because it gives you your whole team 10% attack speed. Like, what an awesome buff. So it pairs really well with like a Ragewing composition. If you're playing like a Xayah composition, or you're playing Astrals, like I talked about earlier, playing a Varus based composition. If you're playing like an Ashe based composition somehow, like maybe you're rerolling Twitch and Ashe, I could see that happening. They're both 2 cost, so you can pair them together, so it can go well with Jades. But the way you need to think about Guild is they're splash traits. You can play them as vertical themselves, and you can just like get all of their traits active. You get a Cavalier, you get a Swiftshot, you get a Rise. That's not really like super viable, but you can play like vertical trait and then just like enable one of these carries. That's usually how you play this, or you just splash them into your other comps. We already talked about where Rise fits. I mean, he just fits with mages. Very good to play in Astrals as well because he is a guild mage, and then Twitch fits in there as well, so you can combo with that. Talon, he is his own, he is a carry, so you build the whole composition around him really, and he's guild and assassin. You play vertical guild, or you just play like an assassin based comp like we talked about earlier. I also like to play Talon with Ragewing composition. I'm sure there'll be a build at some point where you play you duo carry Talon and Xayah, because there is a Ragewing assassin in that build. So if you get a lot of AD items, you can like duo carry Xayah and Talon. I've tried to do it so many times that Talon has been very, very, very weak on the PvE, but I can see the tech, so he can pair very well with just assassin-based composition, guild-based compositions, and Ragewing-based compositions tried out. And then Bard, you just play him literally every single game. Every single game, if he can fit on your board, he goes on your board. You know what I'm saying? And if he can't fit on your board, I don't know. You need to figure that out. I mean, sometimes he can't fit, but you want to fit him on your board. Very, very good unit. Insanely good unit. Okay, Jade, we got Karma, Tarek, Ashe, Gnar, Anivia, Nico, Soraka, and Shioyu. So what does Jade do? So it's a 3, 6, and 9 trait at the time of making this video. Jade is a pretty unique trait. Once you have the trait active, you summon a Jade statue. It's a little movable statue you can move, has its own HP bar. It doesn't attack or anything like that. And what that Jade statue does is for all adjacent units to that Jade statue, like they need to be adjacent during combat. It's not like where you start. It's if you're close to it, it'll give you the effect. It'll give you attack speed and a little bit of HP regen. So yeah, very good. And then if you have 3, you get 1 statue. If you have 6, you get 2, and if you have 9, you get 3 statues. So you can like spread them out around your map, get them active on all of your guys. Can be pretty good. We got we already went through all these, but yeah, Karma's a DPS, Tarek's a tank, Ashe, we already talked about her. Gnar is a mixed, he's more of like a utility style tank, but he does gain some AD. He's a weird unit. Honestly, he kind of does it all, but he doesn't do any of it well. It's kind of weird. I'm sure there'll be a patch where he's strong, but he's a really good splash unit. And just overall, just a fine unit, just a fine unit. Anivia, already talked about her. Nico is more of a like tank and utility style unit, but I could definitely see patches where you can play her as a carry, especially patches where a lot of frontline DPSs are strong. Like there's like a warrior meta, something like that, or maybe like a Siphon, Elise meta, something like that. Nico could actually be a DPS in that style meta, but if it's a backline based meta, we're going to be relegated to tank and a utility style unit. Soraka, purely utility. She just heals your team. And Shioyu, he kind of does it all, man. He's a frontline, he's a tank, and he has some utility built into his own kit a little bit. We already talked about some common pairings with Jade. Obviously, you can play around Guardians with Ashe and that sort of thing. You can play around Dragonmancers because we have Dragonmancer here. We have our Shapeshifter, which will pair with Swain, who's also a Dragonmancer. We already talked about stuff Anivia would pair with. We naturally have Shapeshifters in this trait. So if you're playing a Nico focused comp, you already have Shapeshifter built here. And then these are pretty unique over here. A lot of times when you're playing Jade, they're like a decent splash if it makes sense. Like if you're carrying a Swiftshot and then you have like a Jade emblem and you're playing like Ragewings, right? And you're like carrying like a Zaya and you're going to play Ashe and you have a Shapeshifter in your build because you have Shyvana or Swain, and you can play Gnar to get your Jade in. Like that makes a lot of sense, right? If you're playing an Anivia based comp, you always want to try to fit these things in. You can just run these Shapeshifters as your front line. But yeah, like Jade can splash into other traits just to get it active because it can be really a really decent effect for your backline. Oh, one thing I didn't mention about the Jade statues, they explode and deal a little bit of damage, but it's not, that's like the less important part of the trait. But also a lot of times when you play Jade, you just play it vertically. Most of the time I've played Jade, if I ever play around Shouyu, I almost always play 6 Jade. And the reason is because Shouyu is, if I'm playing Shouyu, I'm playing Shouyu. And then Nico is extremely good. So I already have 4 active. And if I'm playing Nico, I might as well play Gnar. And then I have 5. And then Soraka is also an amazing unit. So you just play 6. So so usually if you're playing Jade, it's very easy to play vertical. Unless you just want to carry one of these units and just play 3. That is fine as well and play better units. Coolio. So Jade. Guess we'd be on Legend now. Alphabet. All right. Legend. We talked about it a lot. We've talked about all these units already. Very, very, very cool. So what Legend does, Legend is a very, very, very unique trait. So Legends, you consume, I'll just have to show this. All right, let's pretend that Volibear isn't a Legend. And it's just Ornn. We have Legend active right now. It's a 3 trait, so you need 3 in. Okay, Legends will consume their closest ally at the beginning of the fight. Like they will not fight. Like, so they'll consume somebody and they'll eat them and they will not fight. You don't have to consume somebody. It's only if you're adjacent to somebody, and it'll be very clear who you're going to eat because there is a tether. You'll see a tether who they're going to eat, and not all of them have to eat. You can just have Volibear eat or something like that. That's fine. A Legend is very weird to play around because it's a 3-piece. You need all 3 of these to be in. They don't really have any natural synergies with each other. Overall, except for Ornn is just like a god unit, and you could like carry Anivia. Volibear feels like the odd man out. Like you want to carry either Volibear or Anivia. And then whoever you're carrying, the other one kind of feels like an oddball out. Except for Anivia kind of has like, she's an evoker. She can play like Sonar or something. That's okay. But like, yeah, Volibear just feels weird in this comp. This comp feels very strange a lot of the times. But essentially you can just pair them with Bruisers because you're going to be playing Ornn. Ornn is a fucking god. I love Ornn. Anyways, and so whenever they consume their ally that's next to them, you gain all of their HP and all of their ability power, or maybe a portion. They'll change it over time. So yeah, and all of these units scale off ability power. So that's how it works. Pretty simple, but it's really, really weird. So yeah, you just play around their natural traits like Bruiser, Evoker, and if you're going to carry this guy, Dragonmancer, or Shimmer Scale. It's going to be what you want to play. Very weird, very weird. Very weird, but very cool. All right, Mage. I feel like we talked about mages quite a bit here. What does Mage do? Mage makes you cast, it makes your guys cast twice. So they'll cast their ability and they'll instantly cast it again. It's very similar to old variations of Mage. Think like set 3, maybe is the last time they had mages like this. No, set 4 as well. So it's like old school mages. Cool. And it's like a 3-5-7, 3-5-7-9. Maybe there's a 9. I'm not sure if there's a 9, but it's like 3-5-7. And at 3, your abilities actually do less damage than normal because you are casting twice. It'd be OP if it did 100% damage. And then at 5, it deals 100% damage. So just know that. And those numbers will change over time, obviously. We got Heimerdinger, Vladimir, Lilia, Nami, Ryze, Silas, and Zoe. Heimerdinger is primarily a DPS. He doesn't really do anything else. He has very weird targeting. Vlad, he is a tank and DPS. Lilia is a DPS. I mean, she's a little tanky, but she's mainly just DPS. Utility and somewhat of a DPS. Ryze, DPS, tank, utility. And Zoe is kind of does it all. Tank, utility, or not. I mean, she's utility DPS. I mean, she can create a tank with Daisy, which is pretty cool. Okay, so what are some common ways to play around mages? As already talked about, you can play around trainers. Trainers are very good to play around in the Euro game. And you end up just playing Heimerdinger with, you play Heimerdinger, Nami, Lilia are some of the most common variations because, as I said before, when you're playing Namzi doesn't do super well as a solo frontliner, especially once you get to the mid game. So you usually want to start trying to pair them with better frontliners. And what easy way to do that than just play Lilia with another Cavalier, and that just like ups your front line quite a bit. So you're good to go there. Pairs extremely well with Astrals, obviously. Pairs well with guild units if you want to carry a Rise, and then Rise pairs very well with these Astral units. Pairs well with other trainers, as I already said. Nami is a Mystic, Lulu is a Mystic, Lulu is a trainer, Heimerdinger is a trainer, and a Mage. And then you can try to like, I wouldn't like pair mages with whispers. I'm sure there'll be a patch where you do that. I'm sure you can if you want to, but it's just kind of weird to run like mages in that composition, because usually when you play around whispers, you are playing more so for Siphon and Elise, at least at the time we make this video. Obviously things can change. And then Zoe is just like a splashable unit you can just play in the late game. You don't usually plan to play Zoe, you just kind of get Zoe and you play her. So yeah, so the stuff I talked about over here is stuff that is a little bit more relevant. All right, that is Mage. Mirage. So Mirage is like the mutant trait of this set. If you guys didn't play Mutant last set, so what Mutant did and what Mirage does is every game it rotate every game. It'll have its own unique effect for that game, and it'll be active for everyone. So everyone will have this effect if they play these units. All of them will be the same. And then the next game, it might be something different, might be the same, and it rotates through like five or so effects, maybe a little bit more. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but one I can remember is like Electric Overload, which is a set 1 trait where you passively, it's like taking Electro, the augment, you know, you deal some magic damage around whenever you get hit. You have a chance to generate that magic damage. And another one is like Warlords from set 4, where you gain HP and ability power per round win that you have. Those are just examples of them, but there's a bunch more. Cool. So we have Leona, Yone, Nunu, Yasuo, and Deja. So over here, you can play Mirage vertical and totally just play all these Mirages and you're good to go. They have a lot of good stuff going on. So if you want to play like a Mirage vertical comp where you're just going to play like 6 Mirage or something, then you can just play around Guardians and Cavaliers, because you don't have to play 4. You don't have to play 4. So you can just play like Leona with a Thresh, and then play Nunu with like Leona with a Braum, because then you can play like a warrior mid game. You can play like Scale Scorn with this guy until you hit your dragon. You can play Nunu with like Hecarim, right? You know, you just play what makes sense with your front line. Obviously they pair extremely well with warriors, because Yone is a warrior, so if you're playing like a reroll style build, you can either play around Cavaliers with the warriors, or you can play around bodyguards with the, or not bodyguards, guardians. I will always say I will get tripped up with bodyguards. You know, I've had bodyguards for a while. Guardians, so you can play like warriors with guardians or Cavaliers, and obviously you have natural warriors built into here because Yasuo and Yone are both warriors. And then Deja is his own thing, so if you want to run like a Deja composition, then Deja needs a lot of frontline, and so you can either run like 4 guardian if you want to do that, or you can do what I said before. If you want to play like vertical Mirage, you can get like Nunu with a Hecarim just for like really good CC. You play like Leona with a Thresh to get CC, because once you have Deja in, Scale Scorn will no longer be able to be active, so you don't really want to play around Lilia and then the warrior. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. So you just play around the traits that are here. So Guardian, Cavalier, those are going to be your front lines when you play these base compositions, and then warriors can be your carries, or Deja can be your carry. Pretty simple, obviously. All right, Mirage, we're on Mystic. So Mystic is the Mystic of old. It just gives your team magic resist, and all these units are going to function in some utility capacity. So what we got here, I've already talked about all of these units now. We got Nami, Lulu, Bard, and Shioyu. I feel like I don't need to talk about this. This is a splash trait that you just run pretty much every game. Like, I try to fit in like Lulu, Bard, Sona, and almost all my compositions if it makes sense, unless I'm doing a strict vertical. So these are just very good splash units. Obviously pairs very well with trainers, like I've already talked about before. Trainer, and we got a Mystic here and a Mage. Obviously pairs super well with that. Pairs very well with Astral. So obviously we got an Astral here. She is a Mystic. She's a Mystic. And boom, bam, boom, Bob's your uncle. Easy. Bard is just going to be in every single one of your compositions, and obviously if you want to play a Shioyu based composition, you're going to be playing around 6 Jade usually, and it's very easy to fit in a Lulu or a Bard behind them and you're good to go. Mystic, very easy to play around, guys. Cool. All right, we got Ragewing. Okay, Ragewing. What Ragewing does is these units don't have mana anymore. What they have is a rage bar, and so rage works a little bit differently than mana does. You generate rage by attacking. You do not generate rage by taking damage, whereas mana, you generate mana by taking damage and attacking. So you can only generate it by attacking. So that's important to know. All right, down here. Oh, and what does it do once it's active? You will gain some attack speed and omnivamp. So during that duration, and you'll see the rage bar going down, so they can't generate mana while they're all cracked out on rage. It's kind of like if you play League of Legends, it's kind of like playing Rumble where he's overheated. He can't generate more heat while he's in that. So it kind of functions a little bit similar to that. And once their rage meter goes down, they can start generating rage again, and they won't have the trait active anymore. All right, down here we got Senna, Set, Kanye, Shin, Swain, Hecarim, and Xayah and Shyvana. The only unit I have not talked about in all of these so far is Xayah. Xayah is a DPS, and she is the DPS of this composition if you want to play as a vertical, or Swain can be the DPS of this composition if you want to play as a vertical, or Shyvana sometimes, it really depends on the meta, is going to be that. So Ragewings function very well as just a strict vertical. If you just want to play from 3 to 6, that works pretty well. And then you just enable whoever you're trying to carry. So if you're trying to carry Kanye, you can play 3 or 6 Ragewing and play assassins with them. That makes a lot of sense, right? Xayah, if you want to play Xayah, you just pair something like a Twitch or an Ashe. I would almost always go Twitch, unless it's like a frontline based meta and you really need Ashe to slow the attack speed of the front lines, then that could be a more viable option. Or if you have a Jade emblem, it's very easy to play. Like I said earlier, you play like Ashe and then you play Nico, and then I can give you a Shapeshifter to combo with Swain or with Shyvana. And then your biggest frontline options are just going to be playing like Hecarim with Shyvana if you end up getting a Shyvana. But if you don't get a Shyvana, your best frontline bets are going to be playing something like a Hecarim with just other Cavaliers and just base your composition around Hecarim, and then you can use your Shin to make your frontline even more tanky up there. Ragewings, pretty simple, guys. Once we start getting into these end ones, they're pretty simple because I talked about a lot of the stuff already, right? Okay, cool. Revel, we got Tahm Kench, Jinx, Corki, Sona. I feel like I've talked about what they fit with, but let's talk about what Revel actually does. So whenever Revels deal damage, they shoot a random rocket. They shoot a rocket to a random enemy. And yeah, and it deals magic damage. And the more Revels you have, the more damage it does. Pretty simple, right? Cool. So we have Tahm Kench, Jinx, Corki, and Sona. I've talked about all of these units already. The primary carry of this composition, if you want to play around Revels, is going to be Corki. And so if you want to play around as many Revels as possible, then you can play around Bruisers, obviously play around Bruisers and Evokers. But as I said earlier, I think one of the best pairings with Cannoneers and Revels are going to be trainers. If you play trainers in a hero game, obviously if you don't play trainers in a hero game, it's gonna be tough to fit. But if you don't want to play as many trainers or many Cannoneers as possible, and so that means you're not playing Sir Thomas Kench, then it's very easy to just play like just really good units. So usually you can fit Sir Thomas Kench because Ornn is a god unit and he's a bruiser, so you can usually fit Tahm Kench. You play Tahm Kench, Ornn, but you don't have to play 4 bruisers. After that, you could play like Hecarim and Nunu, something like that, right? So you don't have to commit to bruisers or anything like that because this is a very small trait. So just get good frontline units. Don't think about it too much. And then the obvious really good pairing is going to be with trainers because Sona is an evoker, Cannoneers. You guys get it. Talked about it for the 3rd time now. One hidden interaction that I'll just tell you guys, and maybe it'll get removed from the game, but my sources that watch Mortdog's stream tells me that this interaction isn't getting removed. It's just going to get toned down. Maybe it's supposed to be like hidden OP because it's hard to hit. If you have a Revel emblem, put it on Anivia, and maybe this will get changed. So don't shoot the messenger. But if you put it on Anivia, it is really OP because Anivia does damage over time, and the damage over time will calculate as an instance of damage, which will cause just rockets to shoot all over the place. So yeah, very, very, very OP. Cool in that regard. All right, we already did Ragewing. We are on Scale Scorn. Okay, Scale Scorn. So the way Scale Scorn work is they are kind of like the Dragon Slayer trait of this. This trait cannot be active if you have a dragon on your board. So just remember that. If you have a dragon active, you cannot play Scale Scorn. You can play Scale Scorn, but you will not get the bonus. So Scale Scorns gain magic damage, and they gain damage resistance is what they gain. And I believe it's damage resistance to high health enemies. I believe that's what it is. Could be a little bit wrong. But the point you need to know is they gain some magic damage, and they gain resist, and it's a 2/4 synergy, and there might be a 6 synergy as well, but it's like crazy to hit, obviously. Anyways, cool. Here we go. We got Braum, Lilia, Diana, and Olaf. So as we look through here, we have 3 carry options. We have Lilia, Diana, and Olaf. So you really just play around those traits, right? So if you want to play Lilia and you want to play Scale Scorn, then you'll play a Lilia based comp, and I've already talked about so many options for playing Lilia, and you just need to fit another Scale Scorn. So whether that's Braum, if you want to play like Braum and like a Thresh or something like that, that is fine. But a lot of times I played Lilia, I've just played a random Diana, and I just also like duo carried my Leona or my Lilia and Diana, because if I get extra carry items, I can throw my Diana, she gets a Scale Scorn active, and she can be like kind of tanky and also deal some damage, can be very nice. If you're playing an Olaf based comp and you want to get Scale Scorn active, then it's very easy because your frontline options can just be Cavalier with Lilia, or it can be Guardians over here. And then if you're playing assassin based compositions, same thing. Your frontline options are most likely going to be Cavalier, or they're going to be Guardians. Really easy, guys. Scale Scorn. Scale Scorn's cool. I like it. All right, Shapeshifters. We got a lot of these guys. We got, so what does Shapeshifter do? So all these units, they transform in a way, and that just is naturally in their kit. They will transform, and what Shapeshifter does is it gives the Shapeshifters bonus HP whenever they transform. So that's all you really need to know. And it scales off of their HP. So it's like percentage bonus based off of their HP. Not their base HP. Like you can put a Warmogs on Swain and then he'll gain more HP. But a lot of times it's bait. But like Warmogs on Nico or Shyvana, stuff like that, it's like really, really good. Or Gnar. Cool. So over here we got Nidalee, Gnar, Elise, Swain, Nico, and Shyvana. I already talked about the roles that they fulfill. The most common carries of these are going to be Elise and Swain. So if you want to carry one of those, if you want to carry one of those, then like Elise, if you're playing Elise, then you will pair Elise with other Whispers, with Siphon. Usually when you play Elise, you want to duo carry Siphon and Elise. Diversifies your damage. Siphon is AD, Elise is AP. So if you're carrying both of them, it makes good diversification there. And an easy Shapeshifter to fit inside of there is going to be a Nico. Obviously, if you're playing like a Dragon Alliance based comp, then you could fit a Shyvana with a Siphon if you have Dragon Alliance, obviously, or Dragon Horde. That can be there. If you're playing Swain, then Swain, you can play with Vertical Ragewings, or you can play around Dragonmancer, and then usually just pair Nico in there because she is the best utility to fit in there until you can hit your Shyvana. Obviously, you can play Shyvana with Swain. Very, very, very simple. I feel like there's not much to explain here other than that. And then Nidalee, you can pair Nico and Gnar. Usually going to be your best bets to pair with Nidalee if you want to carry her, because if you're playing Nidalee, you're probably going to be playing Astrals. If you're playing Astrals, you're playing Varus, and Varus, he's a Swiftshot. Ashe is a Swiftshot. Play Ashe, you can get Jade active a lot of the times. You can get a Jade emblem, something like that. So you're going to be playing around like Gnar or Nico if you want to play Shapeshifter with Nidalee. That is going to be your best bet. Cool. Shapeshifters. All right, what do we have next? Is this Shimmer Scale? Okay, Shimmer Scale is very cool. Very cool. So the way Shimmer Scale works, it's a 3, 5, and 7, and there might be a 9. I don't know how you would ever hit it, but there might be a 9. I'm not sure. I think there is in a 9. Anyways, you get the point. All right, the way Shimmer Scales work is you get a unique item for having the Shimmer Scale active. So if you have 3, you get 1 item. If you have 5, you get 2. And if you have 7, you get 3. And if you have 9, I think you get 5. It's kind of nutty. Anyways, because it's like impossible to hit. So those are unique items, and they're pretty random every game. I do believe everyone gets the same item. It kind of works out like Mutant. So if you have 3 active, and that 3 active is going to be Draven's Axe, then you'll get Draven's Axe. And everyone else who uses that trait will also get Draven's Axe. There are a bunch of unique items. I'm not going to go through all of them because I don't remember them off the top of my head, and you will 100% forget them when you get done with this. Just see what it does when you do it. Most of those items will scale off the amount of gold that you have, and some of the items would, and a lot of the items will generate gold for you. It's extremely good to play in the early game. All right, so here we have Aatrox, Kanye, Volibear, Zoe, and Idis. I already talked about the roles that each of these fulfill. So a lot of times when you're playing this, if you're going to play a Volibear-focused comp, you'll be playing around Dragonmancer, and it's pretty easy to get Shimmer Scale in because Kanye is a Shimmer Scale and a Ragewing, and there are 2 Ragewing Dragonmancers, so you just have to fit an Aatrox in there. And if you want to fit Aatrox in there, sometimes you can fit like a Shin. You can get Warrior active if that's what you want to, because he's also a Ragewing. That can be a play. That is a really common pairing if you want to play like a Volibear carry or a Kanye carry type of composition. Other than that, you can play vertical. I just played a vertical game of this where I played 7. It felt extremely, extremely strong. If you hit an Idis, it's Idis is just amazing just to get that 3 Shimmer Scale, because it naturally will just automatically give you that item. And then if you're playing Idis, all you have to do is pair 2 more Shimmer Scales with him. You get 2 more items, and you can econ up with those items. I did that. It was really fun. If you get a Shimmer Scale heart or an emblem, at the beginning of the game, it can be very, very, very good because it's really easy to get 3 in because you get all you need is an Aatrox, and a Kanye. And then if you get a Idis later, like you can just like really scale that up very easily. But that's pretty much how you play Shimmer Scale, guys. Pretty simple. You just play around these 2 units usually. And then if you hit an Idis, obviously. Okay, we are on Spell Thief. We're not going to talk about Spell Thief because that is just Zoe. That is in my unit guide video. You guys can check it out. Starcaller is just Soraka's thing. So we're on Swiftshot now. So the way Swiftshot works, it's kind of like the sniper trait of this set. If you guys played past sets. So the way it works is the further the target of your Swiftshot is away. So if Varus is on your backline and he's attacking someone up here, the further they are away, the more attack speed they will have. So they gain attack speed the further they're away. So it functions similarly to Sniper, where snipers gain damage as they are far away. So pretty simple, right? We got Ezreal, Ashe, Twitch, Varus, and Xayah. Already talked about all these units. Maybe I didn't talk about Ezreal. I don't think I talked about Ezreal. Ezreal is a DPS. That's pretty much all he does. Pretty simple, right? Alrighty. So if you're, all of these are kind of like carry-esque, and I talked about how you can splash both of these in. I feel like I talked a lot about Twitch and Ashe already, so I won't really talk about them. Ezreal, if you're playing around like Ezreal, he's really good early game carry, and so you can just play around Tempest pretty easily with like a Kiana. You can just get a Kiana in. You can play around like Dragon Mancers with Lee Sin. Very easy to play around. Tempest is really easy to splash in. And then like late game, you could play like an Ezreal to get Tempest active if you wanted to. If you're playing like a Xayah composition and you want to play Ezreal, or if you're playing Ornn in that composition, because Ornn can naturally fit in that build with Shen, who is also a bruiser, and you want to play Ezreal to get that active, that can be very good. Really the way you want to play around Swiftshots is unless you're going to play 4, maybe 4 will be meta at some point, I'm not sure, but most of the time I think it'll be like 2 will be the meta. And your second one is just going to be based off of your front line. So like, for example, if you're playing Varus and you play Ashe, maybe you're going to play Ashe because you want to play Nico, right? And you have a Nico on your board. So maybe you want to play Ashe so you can get Jade active, right? And then like I just said, the way Ezreal can work, if you have Ornn on your board, maybe you want to play Ezreal. And then Twitch is the one that you can just play no matter what, be with your other carry, because his natural trait is very good with Guild. Cool. That's Swiftshot. All right, Swiftshot. Let's get out of here. We are on Tempest. All right, we have okay, I gotta tell what it does. So Tempest, I believe it's 8 seconds into the fight. It might be a little bit different, but just know a flat duration into the fight. It's either like 8 seconds or 10 seconds. Lightning strikes down and it deals damage. It does like percent health damage to the enemy team, and it will CC them for 1 second, and that can obviously be changed to balance changes. That's what it does. That's all it does, and then it scales up the more that you have. The damage does, not the duration. So we got Ezreal, Kiana, Lee Sin, Ornn, and Ao Shin. So like I've already talked about all of these. You can play this as a vertical composition, or it's just like very splashable, like I've already talked about just now with Ezreal, with Xayah, and Ornn with Shin, right? You can pair those very easily. Kiana, when you're playing Assassins, you play Kiana and you're carrying... you can play Kiana and then you frontline your Ornn, right? If you're playing Assassins. And then Ao Shin. If you're playing Ao Shin, you probably just want to play an Ornn, or you can play a Lee Sin, because Lee Sin is also a tank and a utility style unit. Really simple, guys. Tempest, very good splash trait or vertical trait if you want to play around it. So we're on Tempest. We should be on Trainer. I've talked about Trainer so much. I feel like I should have talked about Trainer first. Maybe that would have helped. So we have Heimerdinger, Tristana, and Lulu. So what do trainers do? This is like the A-bomb, the mech, cultist. If you guys played the past sets, this is like that trait. And so what it does, if you have 2 trainers on your board, it summons a Nomzi, which is Gromp. It's literally just Gromp. And what Gromp does is Gromp shoots a big fireball out of his mouth, and it goes all the way across the board. And it deals a flat damage, and then it deals magic damage over time. It scales off percent health, I believe. Okay, if you have 2 active, it just summons a Nomzi. If you have 3 active, Nomzi does 100% increased damage, so it can be very strong. Maybe that number will change the balance, but point you need to know is that it gets stronger with damage. Okay, every round, at the beginning of the round, Nomzi will be fed by your trainers that were on your board the last round. So, and it increases with star level. So they'll throw them a Poro. They'll throw them a Poro snack to Nomzi. He's gonna eat them. And Nomzi has 25 stacks, at least at the time we make this video. And every time he gets down to 0, he stars up. So he'll start up at 1 star, and then he'll go to 2 star, and he can get to a maximum of 4 star. And once you have him 4 star, he just gains HP for the rest of the game if you store playing the trainers to feed him. And you'll need to keep trainer active in order for him to be summoned. If you take your trainers out, he will no longer be there. I believe if you take them out and just put them right back in, Noms will still be there. It'd be bullshit if it didn't work that way. So I'm pretty sure it works that way. And you can feed him faster by having a higher star level. For every star level, you feed him 1 snack. So if Tristana is 1 star, she'll only feed him 1 snack. If she's 2 stars, she'll feed him 2. So if all these are 2 starred, you'll feed him 6 snacks per turn. You want to get this in as early as possible. Very, 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 very good. I love playing around this trait. Cool. Very fun, very flexible. Oh, I didn't talk about what it plays around. Sorry. I feel like I've talked about it a lot already. So usually you'll carry Tristana in this composition. I think it's very difficult to carry Heimerdinger. Maybe there'll be some tech down the road. But you generally just pair Nami with this because you get Mystic, and then this is a Mage. And then, like I said earlier, I really like playing Cavaliers with this front line because you can play Lilia and Hecarim, give you a nice front line, and then also will give you Mage for your Nami and your Heimerdinger. Just naturally fits. You can also play, and if you're carrying your Tristana, then you just play some Cannoneers like Jinx or the Corkster, and then you can play Sona, because Sona is also a Revel, and so are your Cannoneers. So that can be very good there. You can also play like Bruisers if you really want to, but I don't really like that tech. I mean, you can, because you can play Tom Kinch and you can play Silas, and I'm sure that'll be some tech at some point, because then you can play Silas as a Mage, Tom Kinch is a Revel, and your Cannoneers are Revel. So that is also the other option you have for frontline, so that is also very viable. Okay, cool. There we go. Trainers. Wow, we're almost done. We got 2 more. All right, we got Warrior. Warrior is very cool. Okay, all right. We got Aatrox, or wait, hold on. What does Warrior do? So every time you auto, you have a chance to deal increased attack damage. And it's very clear when it happens, because your guys will like glow red. They're like all cracked out on rage, it looks like. And so that's pretty much how it works. The more warriors you have, the more damage it'll deal. It goes in like 2, 4, 6. Maybe it has an 8 if you get warrior emblems. It probably has a vertical like that. Cool. So we have Aatrox, Shin, Yone, Olaf, and Yasuo. I feel like I've already talked about all of these units, and I've already talked about the best pairings. So some of the most common pairings. Obviously, if you want to just play Shimmer Scale, you can just throw this in to play Shimmer Scale. You can play 4 warriors. 4 warriors is very good a lot of times. And if you're, let's just assume you're playing like 2 warriors, something like that. You can pair warriors with bruisers, because Shin is a bruiser, and you can play Ornn, and Olaf is a bruiser, and so you can just play 4 bruiser, pretty easy to do. And you can play like an Alawi with them, because Alawi does shred, that can help your frontline units. You can play my Mirage units, because we have Yasuo and Yone, which are both Mirage units. You can play around Cavaliers with those Mirage, because Nunu is a Mirage. Olaf is a Scale Scorn, and Lilia is also a Scale Scorn, who is a Cavalier, and Nunu is Cavalier Mirage. You can play around Guardians, because we have Scale Scorn, which is Braum. Braum is a Scale Scorn who's also a Guardian. Yone is a Mirage, and Leona is a Mirage. So usually your most common frontliners are going to, you know, that I'm looking at it, it's really flexible. But your most common frontliners in the early game are going to be purely going to be Cavaliers or Guardians, and then late game you do have some options to play something like Bruisers. More Bruisers, because you can fit in Ornn. I just don't really like playing the early game Bruisers, like I just play these 2 because I just don't like the other Bruisers. I like the Cavaliers and Guardians a little bit more. Yeah, I think it's a little bit easier to play around. All right, cool. But late game, you know, if you get Ornn's a god. All right, Whispers. We have, what do Whispers do? I got to tell what those do. So Whispers, you gain ability power that stacks over time. You may gain attack damage as well, but I believe it's just ability power. Maybe you gain both. Anyways, point is, you gain stacking offensive stats per auto attack whenever you go through throughout the fight. So it stacks infinitely as well. And the more you have, the more that number is. The other thing that it does is it naturally shreds and it shrinks the enemy. So they get real small and they lose magic resistant armor. So it has natural shred built into it. So a lot of times you don't even have to build shred, which is something that's pretty important in most compositions. So we have Thresh, Elise, Silas, Pyke, and Siphon. I feel like I've already talked about this so much. If you're playing Siphon, then usually you'll duo carry Elise, and that gives you your 4 Whisper. You can play more whispers. Obviously, if you want to, you can just play vertical whispers. But generally, you can just play Elise and Siphon and then just play good units around them. Doesn't really matter that much. Obviously, you can play whispers. If you're wanting to play around mages, you can play like Silas plus Siphon for your front line. That can be a tech. Obviously, Pike can work well with Siphon as well if you want to play Pike carry. If you're playing Assassins, you're going to play like Guardian Assassins, and then you fit Pike in. There you go. You have natural whispers there. But in general, the carries are going to be Elise, Pike, and Siphon. So just whoever you're trying to carry, you build a composition around them. But remember, you already get the trait active just by having the dragon and one more. So you don't really need to build like a special composition around that. You can just play those two units and then just build a strong composition around it and like add a shapeshifter like a Nico or something like that. So you just play good units really because it's a small trait, or you play the vertical. Anyways, guys, that is the last one, I think. I hope this video was helpful. A little jumbly at the beginning. It's always weird when you start because you have to talk about a lot of stuff you haven't talked about yet. Once you get to the end, it kind of all makes sense. I think this is one that a lot of people re-listen to because it is kind of weird. It's a lot of info, but I appreciate all of you who made it all the way here. And this is my last of the preseason guide series. And it's the last guide I will be making for some time because I will be out of the country for a few weeks. But when I get back, I'll grind for a week and then I'll have some good guides to post for you guys. So be looking out for that, but it'll be a little bit before there's more guides being posted on my channel. I'll be out of the country. It's unavoidable. But anyways, if you guys want more of me, I stream at Twitch.tv/trading-TFT. I stream 4 to 5 days a week. I stream on the weekdays usually. Again, I will be gone for a while, so you won't see me there for a bit, but when we get back, I'll be back to my normal schedule. And then I have twitter.com/trading-TFT, and I post there pretty much every day. So if you guys want to keep up with me, especially while I'm on my trip, and see what I'm doing, you can ask me questions on there, stuff like that. I'll be happy to answer that. You can follow me there. But pretty much that's it. And yeah, I appreciate all of you who made it to this point in the video. I hope you have a wonderful day, wonderful night, and wherever you are, I just hope you're doing well. See ya. Bye.